Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. And boy, my camera's my setup's a little dark today. Maybe I should turn the lights up a little bit here. There we go. Now I don't like I'm death warmed over, just barely. Uh, Joining me today for the Bullet is the same guy as yesterday, Rob Morse, self-defense gun stories. Rob, you decided yesterday wasn't enough. You came back for another beating today, huh?
The news will continue until we finally cover all of it, Paul. I could be here forever.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah, remember when we very first started Polite Society podcast? We how do I put this? It was a twice a week show, and we were struggling to get it in 90 minutes,
Right.
each show, and then because of scheduling and personnel
Life,
issues,
right?
yeah, we went down to a once a week show, and it became a 3 hour monstrosity. And then when I started doing this, it was, is there gonna be 30 minutes of news every day to cover? Oh, yeah, there's 30
Yeah.
minutes of news every day to cover. Looks like, and I gotta say thank you, because I've had a day full of running and things to get done, and I gotta admit, Rob has been the one that has done most of the research today. You come up with a New York story to start with, Rob.
Oh, how can we ignore New York? So remember, this is the state where we need you to be disarmed. Yeah, you're safer if you're disarmed, honest, but also where we've got some progressive politicians on the record. They were the original source of defund the police, and now they're saying, oh yeah, in fact, don't even call them. I mean, okay, we'll spell it out. Two New York State Assemblymen, one Zoran Kwame Mamdani, and City Council member Tiffany Kavan, both collaborated on a public safety resource guide. Okay, that wasn't distributed to voters, that was distributed to small businesses. Came out at the end of September. It urged small business not to call the police. There are better ways of solving problems. If the person causing the harm, give them a chance to correct their behavior. Stop that, or that's not okay. This sounds like a third grade playground monitor, maybe second grade.
Put that pistol away and quit robbing us. That's not acceptable behavior.
That's right. Hey, didn't I go to school with you? You know, that's really not all right. They're treating people like they're third graders. Business owners laughed out loud. Now, what was interesting is that not only did these particular progressive Democrats not only say we need to defund the New York PD, by the way, some of their campaign clothing was branded with defund the PD. Well, wow. This is the same representative who has parts of New York, the borough of Queens, where people were beaten blind. Their brains were so badly bruised, the person may lose their vision. And they said, oh, well, no, that's just a statistical anomaly. No, it's not. Not hardly. They came up with, at least a half dozen within a few months. And one of the attackers had 45 prior arrests.
Yeah, 45.
That's insane.
Yes.
So what was even interesting, though, was when they said, I know those police, they really can't help you anyway. Well, that's great if you want to promote violence. But if I say I need a gun, then you say, well, no, you don't, because guns cause violence. No, the guy brings all the violence he wants. He and his buddies come into his store thinking they're going to outnumber me, what the gun does is let me and my female clerk who work here late at night stand a fighting chance. Anybody who was sane would have thrown this back in their face, which makes me think there's a widespread bit of insanity. When someone lies to you that badly and you go, yeah, whatever you say, good for you, girl, you go. Going, what, is this right out of Herman Goebbels? This is insanity.
One has to wonder, there are people that live their entire lives and never leave New York City. If it at some point that has to be somewhat ingrained that this is how things operate here. Generationally, I mean.
Yeah. I heard, who was talking about that? Someone was saying, after a while, you get so invested in your way of life that you can't criticize it, even if it is profoundly wrong. You're invested in it. It's like you can't criticize your politician without feeling that you're criticizing something about yourself. Well, okay, look at the world around you. Is it working well? Are people, can kids play on the street? Are they safe? Can you go to and from work? Believe me, where I come from, you can take a walk on the street at any hour of the day and night. You're very safe. Even when the police aren't there after a natural disaster, because the citizens are armed. And if criminals try and run rampant with them, even if the police aren't there.
Yeah. I want to remind everybody, I forgot to as we got started, I want to remind everybody, if you're catching us on the Polite Society podcast feeds, either YouTube or Facebook, you can comment and on the live video, and we'll get those comments on the air. We'll discuss them with you live. If you're catching us anywhere else, head to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. And we'll get those comments and we'll discuss them on the air. If you're catching us Opslands or anywhere else that picks us up. So, it's and Rob, this is the insanity is so deep in New York City that it's surprising it took from September, when this was sent out, a couple weeks from this to come to light.
Right.
I mean, it would have if I would have gotten that letter, or if somebody that I know would have gotten that letter that thinks like I do, boy, that would have been screamed from the rooftops.
Well, the New York Times is never going to cover this ever.
No.
I found the money quote. Police do not solve most crimes and do nearly nothing to help survivors and victims. Close quote. That's your elected representatives. It's tragic, really. It's tragic. Because if I say, look, I want to protect myself, they say, oh, that just promotes violence. It's like, and what was the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So, wow, you get the government, you get the society, you get the criminality that you really like. Wow.
Let me get my takes comment up here. He says, like living in Oregon, I don't agree with the politics, but will not give up my home. Idaho does not have a coast. Well,
can I boy, that rings such a bell. My take. When people tell me that, here's what I say: your children will grow up in a culture. You can say you want to fight for the right culture in your home. Got it. Great idea. But your kids could grow up learning to live in a free society. And you know what? Not having a coast might be a reasonable price to pay. There are places with coasts where your children could taste freedom.
Texas
might want
has
to
a
consider it.
great big Gulf Coast.
Florida has one. Mississippi has a moderately sized one. Alabama has one. You know what?
Louisiana.
I didn't even
Yeah.
include that. Yeah.
South Carolina is not exactly free, but it's not as free
It's
as it
better
could
than Oregon,
be.
partner.
Oh, it is. It is. Georgia has a little bit of coast on the east side,
There you go.
and they know freedom.
Shall we
Let's just
try
let's
Chicago?
just hope they remember freedom in a couple weeks.
Boy. And that people remember how to count votes rather than make stuff up.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about the other another, not
The
the
North
other.
Coast.
Yes.
Yeah, who was that? Cleveland? Chicago has become America's new wild, wild west. Call it Mogadishu on Lake Michigan. Criminals pretty much do what they want with impunity. They don't have to give a second thought to getting caught by police. Some of them might only worry a little bit about meeting resistance from their victims. A few days ago, a trio of criminals crashed their car, a hijacked car, on the Dan Ryan Expressway. That's down on the south side. Instead of waiting for a police report, they simply abandoned the car and started running. They also took their AR rifle with them. So that's caught on video. They ran down the biggest and busiest expressway to try and run down the next exit. Thousands of commuters use that every few minutes. It didn't take long before they found an inattentive driver who was stopped in traffic, and he effectively volunteered to be hijacked. They pointed a gun at him, took his car. That really shouldn't come as a surprise. They've got a soft on-crime, Soros-funded DA prosecutor who was elected. Drivers who stop in traffic and think nothing of it and then get carjacked. If you vote for politicians and elected officials who will not put criminals behind bars, then you will have to defend yourself. I suggest you start carrying.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's not easy to get. It takes time, but you can get a concealed carry permit in Chicago. Illinois is shall issue. I would encourage everybody to get a permit in Illinois. Everybody that possibly can.
You know what? Even if you can't carry a gun right now due to your situation, go get your FOID card. Think of it as another way to another box upon which our democracy stands. The quote here was out of this article. In the real world, Chicago PD doesn't have answers to respond to over half of the highest priority 911 calls. Instead, those calls wait between 30 minutes to 120 minutes until an officer is available to take the report. Yeah, carry your gun.
Absolutely carry your gun. Excuse me. And, a good friend of ours, Gary Doherty, actually does training up in the Chicago area. It can be, like I say, it can be done. You can get your concealed carry permit. And even beyond that, I'm going to say, if you're in your car, I don't care where you live. If it's in Chicago, if it's in Lake Charles, Louisiana, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Los Angeles, California, pay attention around you. Get your face out of your phone, even if you're stopped at a stoplight. Your car is the best escape tool you have. Somebody's running towards you with an AR, the throttle is your friend. Get the hell out of there. So somebody's lawn takes some damage. So a sign gets knocked down. So you jump a curb here or there. Big deal.
I'm a young man that used to ride a bit of motocross. You've been in a truck and been in traffic where you couldn't go anywhere. But on the other hand, with the room to move, your truck will move mountains. So I understand.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to be honest with you. With room to move, any vehicle will move. It's all in how you, when you stop a vehicle, when you're in bumper to bumper traffic, stop so that you can see the pavement underneath the underneath the back bumper of the car in front of you. If you leave that much space, no matter what you're driving, you can turn your steering wheel all the way to wheel lock, hit your throttle, and drive around them. And if that's up on the sidewalk and around, that's up on the sidewalk and around.
It may be down the shoulder. Why did you drive
Yes.
on the shoulder? That's not allowed. Because a man with a gun came up to my window, officer.
Yeah,
There you go. There you go.
exactly.
Time to go to Iowa?
Yes,
Or do we have a,
yes.
do we have some-
Let me check to see if we have. Oh wow. Let me get my take. Has a couple more. Has aim on a. Let me get this in.
Oregon, my state, right or wrong?
Yeah, well, let me get this in. He says, so I'll take all 5 children and 13 grandkids and buy new homes for everyone. At some point, my take. Yeah.
Okay, leave them in Oregon. Have fun.
Yeah, it's. I stay in South Dakota. There are a lot of free states. I get where you're coming from. I stay in South Dakota mostly because of grandkids. I had an opportunity when I became deputy director of new media for the Second Amendment Foundation to move to Washington State and work from the home office every day. I decided against it largely, well, 2 reasons. One was economics. Seattle's not cheap. Number 2 is freedom. We have freedom times 10 of what Washington has. At the time the offer was tended for my job, we had freedom times 10. Now we probably have freedom times 15. And with my job, I could quite literally live anywhere on the face of the planet. I cherish freedom. I get family being important to you. I really do. It just makes
Paul, is my take making my point or denying it? You want your children to know freedom. Okay, so you're going to stay in Oregon? Okay.
Well, keep
Pay your
fighting,
money,
man.
take your chances.
All right, let's go ahead. But my take, again, just keep fighting, man. Do not give up the fight, and don't give up hope in the courts. I think courts are where we're going to be gaining our greatest gains in Oregon. Let's talk Iowa, man.
Well, think back. You know, our states have some history, and for 175 years, Iowans have been among the relatively few citizens that don't, in their state constitution, have a specific right to keep and bear arms. That might change soon. November 8th, when the Hawkeye State voters can cast their ballots and vote up or vote down on a proposed amendment to bear arms. It was helped sponsored by the Iowa Firearms Coalition. It's been pursuing it for a decade. Mm-hmm. When asked, they said the right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right, and we want to codify it in the Iowa Constitution. And if, for some unknown reason, the U.S. Constitution would be changed through the makeup of the Supreme Court, or, you know, for other legislation that we can't foresee, we want those protections to be recognized in our state. Wow, that's important. It's a step ahead of the Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. This is how it reads, quote, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The sovereign state of Iowa affirms and recognizes this right to be a fundamental individual right. Any and all restrictions shall be subject to strict scrutiny." All right, not bad.
Not bad. And now they crafted this before the Bruin decision came down, before we got
Right.
text history and tradition. One and they cannot change it now. It's actually, it had to pass the legislature. I've covered this before. In order to get this in, they had to pass the legislature in 2 separate years to get it to go on the ballot. So it had to pass in 2020, had to pass in 2021 in the legislature. Then in 2022, the citizenry gets to vote on it in the general. If the citizenry passes it, then it becomes an amendment to the Constitution of Iowa. In 2020, when this first came about, there was no Bruin decision, so text history and tradition wasn't a thing.
The strict scrutiny says that if the government imposes a restriction, it has to be done in the way to have the least impact, and also any claimed benefit of the law cannot be speculative. Well, we think this might be a good law, so we're going to disarm the citizens. No, no, no. You say it's a public safety provision. Show me where it created a safer public. Interesting. So you could see a Second Amendment like that come in conflict with national legislation very quickly.
Yeah, you could. We get back to my take. Another comment. I think he's going back to, living in another state. If money was no object, honestly, my take right now, if money were no object for Susan and I could have give me a $6 million house right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Give me the ultimate mansion here. I cannot find another state that has the freedoms we have. Not just gun rights, although we have great gun rights, but across the board, tax-wise, we're among the bottom. In all forms of liberty, we are very near the top. I can't think of a better state myself to live in right now. Talk to me in 10 years. We'll see where time has flowed. What do we got up next, man? And we're still staying in Iowa. And God bless the people of Cherokee. Cherokee's not that far from here, man.
By the way, you are in the top 5 states as ranked by freedom. So is Tennessee, New Hampshire, and Florida. I think the problem with New Hampshire, though, is a lot of people consider it Massachusetts North, so a lot of people have diluted the freedoms that they once had in New Hampshire. Nevada was once considered a free state, too. Again, now polluted by California.
Yeah, it's now California East.
I am a huge fan of armed school staff. They introduced themselves to me, and when we met, I was bowled over. Now a school district in northwest Iowa is allowing some staff members to carry firearms on school grounds. The district is in Cherokee County, and it came to that decision after the most recent board meeting. Teachers and parents both had a chance to speak during that meeting. The advocates said it's necessary, and other people said, yeah, maybe tell me about the training, but it makes me squirm. The school board made a unanimous decision to affirm it. Cherokee School Superintendent Kim Lingenfelter, boy, should that have been a South Dakota type name? Said the initial discussions began months ago, and they of course started with their local law enforcement officials and the school resource officers who are already in the schools. I'm going to quote them here because this was pretty much to the point. No one wants guns in schools, but we want bad guys to be the only people with guns in schools, even less. The board has taken a very measured and serious approach to the challenge of keeping students safe. Close quote. Now, I would disagree because they seem to see any firearm as a vice. I consider them a virtue. The district will get a list of what teachers would like to be trained. All staff will take part in monthly training. if they're approved by the school board. The district will start an oversight committee to review how the policy is actually used and implemented. That is the second school district in Iowa that has publicly announced armed staff.
And Cherokee is not all that far from me. It's as the crow flies, 60 miles. Driving, about 115, 120 miles.
With the world set on a grid and you can't get there from here?
That's exactly right. There are some. Okay. It is southeast about 60 miles, but in the upper Midwest we have grids, and there are no roads that go southeast. There's a couple that run the other direction that go from Minneapolis to Sioux City, but that cuts the wrong direction to get to Cherokee. So, but they're very much the same type of people in northeastern Iowa as they are in northwestern Iowa as in southeastern South Dakota. Rural, absolutely depend on yourself type people. And the fact that Cherokee schools did this does not surprise me very much. I would love to see more school districts in Iowa, specifically if they could get this done in school districts like in Sioux City. I doubt it's going to happen in Des Moines, which is the most populous city in Iowa. But I'd love to see Sioux City. I'd love to see Council Bluffs, which is across the river from Omaha. I'd love to see Council Bluffs do it. Anyway, congratulations, Cherokee.
Turns out it's local news for you. I appreciate that.
So, all right. Well,
do we have notes, or should we jump to Georgia?
Well, let me go see if we got comments. Let me get one in from the Facebook side, Jack Neat, and this comment came in a little while ago, so we may have moved. This may be a topic from
2 days ago.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
It's 7 minutes ago, so I don't remember exactly what we were talking about 7 minutes, but that's the key. If you live in a tyrant-run state like New York, we have to actively fight our tyrants, actively support gun rights groups, actively call reps, and actively be ungovernable. You know what, Jack? You got it. You need to actively be a pain in their backside.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm thinking, Jack, of people who call themselves pro-gun Democrats. That doesn't sound like a pain in the backside to me. That sounds like a radical advocate of the status quo.
With all due respect to our I'm trying to think. My brain is freezing up. Laura.
Yeah. Liberal Gun Club.
Yeah, I cannot remember her last name right now. With all due respect, if you call yourself a pro-gun, and you're still voting for people that want to take your gun rights away, you're kind of missing the boat here, pal.
Well, okay. I think she's trapped back a decade, or other issues are really much more important to her than the Second Amendment and the right of self-defense, which may well be true. There was a time when the right of self-defense was not politicized, when there were many pro-gun Democrats in office.
Mm-hmm.
That changed, a decade ago?
Yeah.
Do we want to go to Georgia, or do we want to wrap up?
No, let's do Georgia, because I think as I alluded to, they've got a very let's hope things go right in the election, but it's a very important election coming up. Let's talk about that.
A good guy with a gun in Georgia shot an armed schizophrenic. In doing so, he was defending some emergency medical technicians who were on scene. It was just a day after Stacey Abrams brutally criticized Georgia's concealed carry laws and complained about the fact that millions of Americans have embraced the right to keep and bear arms. Millions more since gun sales started to soar when we locked everybody in their homes and told the police to stay home in 2020. Yesterday, an armed citizen in Gainesville, Georgia, came to the aid of paramedics. They were being threatened by a man who was armed with a gun and a knife. They say the Gainesville police first started receiving reports of a man who was threatening passengers and damaging vehicles about 7:30 in the morning. Before officers could get there, the EMTs with a paramedic organization were passing by, and they were then threatened by this crazy man. And an armed citizen saw what happened, fired 4 shots, and the EMTs were then safe. Police say that Darren Suave Fraley was taken to Northeast Georgia Medical Center. He's expected to recover. A neighbor who reported the opening fire and a second person were also hurt. What the news report doesn't say is whether they were hurt by the attacker or by the armed defender. Family members of the man with mental problems said he's been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and the incident was a result of him being off his meds. Well, investigators have not released the identity of the armed neighbor. The man with the drug problem, in this case, the drugs help him stay sane, was charged with criminal attempt to commit murder, 2 counts of obstruction of an EMT, possession of a gun during the commission of a crime, possession of a knife during the commission of a crime, and aggravated assault. He's still in the hospital as of late Monday afternoon. Wow. So what do you do if you see that?
Well, I was in a younger life. I was an EMT. I let it lapse when I was a truck driver. I let the EMT certification lapse, but I was trained as an EMT in my 20s, and kept that certification for a long time. The first rule, the very first thing they teach you when you go into school to become an EMT, as you're approaching the scene, you go, is the scene safe? Have police secured the scene? Apparently, some EMTs broke rule number 1.
Right. Well, and they see a man who's having a schizophrenic episode, they try and help, and now he pulls a knife. So the scene may have appeared safe and then become not so.
Yeah.
Ralph Warnock or Stacey Abrams are rabidly anti-gun. So to say, I'm a pro-gun Democrat, well, then why would you put someone in the Senate or in the governor's office who is going to vote to take away your Second Amendment rights? If they had their way, that armed citizen would have been another unarmed victim.
Well, and again, let's go to the defund the police. The defund the police is another thing that Abrams is famous for.
Yeah.
What are they? The social worker. What's the social worker they're going to send in the place to the police? How's that social worker going to handle that?
Right. And if you think the police took a long time to arrive, how long will it take for the unarmed social worker to arrive?
There you go.
Well, no matter who wins the upcoming election, there are still going to be carjackers, home invaders, gang members, domestic abusers, and people who are off their meds. Some will violate the law knowingly, some are out of their minds.
Yes.
So how do we live in an imperfect world and save ourselves, our family, and our neighbors?
Take care of yourself first. Yeah, absolutely. And it's there are a lot of there are a lot of jurisdictions where, and if you are an EMT, you are not allowed to carry on the job.
Right.
I'm not aware of, and even it goes into individual paramedic companies, individual ambulance companies, because a lot of ambulances are private entities. So it's policies dependent on the company whether the EMTs are armed or not. But I would certainly hope that if you are an EMT, that you are able to carry that. Is the scene safe? Yeah, you're supposed to be sure the scene is safe. The police have secured the scene before you get there. But again, it may appear to be safe. Is it really? Is the guy faking it to try and get you in there to get your drugs?
Wow. Oh, wow. That's scary.
So, all right. Yeah, we went over time. Big shock, Rob.
Sorry.
No worries. Let's talk self-defense gun stories and anything else you want to plug, man.
I host the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I co-host with Paul on the SAF's Polite Society podcast. Both of those come out once a week. Please put us on your phone in your pocket. My blog is at slowfacts.wordpress.com, and from there, the writing is picked up and carried often at AmmoLand.
On my end, I want to say come back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time, for Mike Piwowarski. He'll be the commentator tomorrow. Friday is Alex Uli, and it's the legal version of the Bullet on Friday. And Monday, I think, is your turn to come back. Or no, you're not Monday.
No.
You're Tuesday guy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know who you got on Monday, partner.
I got to pull my calendar.
Charlie Cook?
It would be Tom Knighton, I think.
All right. Excellent. Not a great choices all.
Yeah, Tom Knighton, and then Tuesday the 25th, Rob Morse is back. So unless he's underwater somewhere. So
okay.
Anyway, do come join us 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow and Friday. And don't forget to come join us noon on Saturday for the weekend edition of the Bullet, where we look back at the events of the week. Thanks for watching.